we're back.
So I was telling about the Shawano authorities.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sandy Montour, the sheriff, I think that was his name, and I think this was in the late 70s. I don't know if Rama went in there and talked to him at some point, but he was invited by Rama, and Rama made a big talk about this in one of the meetings. That Rama had such a high reputation in the town that he invited the sheriff to come and sit in the living room out there and sit down with the sheriff and, prove that he wasn't a cult and prove that he was an upright man and all this kind of stuff. And so that was the relationship he had with the sheriff department. And, when some of the children would run away, this was going on in, right through the first years and stuff already. The sheriff department would find these kids, I don't know if on the road or wherever they found them, and bring them back. And, they would never do anything, never investigate Rama or anything. They would just bring the kids back and turn them back over. So from the start, that's the way Shawano was treating them and stuff. Well, and then you got to understand, his wife runs around in a mink stole and they drive these big Cadillac cars. And Robbie and Debbie were in school there and get, honor students and all this kind of stuff. So, he proclaimed himself to be the rich man of the town and stuff. And somehow he just got this impeccable reputation. He told us in a meeting one time that he could walk into the bank and ask for any amount of money he wanted, and he had a line of credit with the bank for whatever amount of money that he wanted.
This guy that never had a job.
Yeah, and that never paid his bills. That's the killer part of it. It was us and our slavery and our poverty that paid his bills for all of his luxury cars and all of his mink coats for his wife. And all this, putting his kids through Harvard and MIT and all this kind of stuff. Our slavery paid for all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, I just always I remember as a little kid, just the atmosphere, us kids growing up in Shawano, we were Rama kids. Like when you went around town, oh, those are just the Rama kids.
Mm-hmm.
And people either thought of us as Rama kids or like my adoptive parents. My mom just thought I was some weirdo Amish kid. Had no clue. She didn't even know about the cult. She had no idea. But she hadn't lived in Shawano her whole life or anything. She moved there a couple years previously from Chicago area. So she wasn't from around Shawano, but all the people who lived in Shawano and knew about us or whatever, there was no protection. There was actually hatred. And that is something that I have such a hard time with, because there is so many opportunities. People at school, teachers, principals, counselors could have reached out and asked us questions or, dove deeper into it. Instead, they humiliated us in front of our parents by saying the most outlandish and crazy, she smells really bad. Well, how the fuck do you think that makes a 10 or 11-year-old girl feel? I was mortified that this woman was telling not only my mother that I stunk to high heaven, but she was telling me that the whole time I was in school, everybody thought I smelled bad. That's what I took away from that at that age. And not once did she come to me and say, hey, here's some baby wipes. Why don't you go or do you have your period? Maybe you got your period so it smells, because we were only ordered to wear a pad, and a big old flipping those granny pads, you know, that's all I had. I didn't have anything else. And I went to school. I didn't even know what a flipping period was. And then like the teachers, like one teacher said something to the fact of, I don't understand how she can have the comprehension of a college student, but the reading level of a first grader. Like, take that in and really analyze that. That's a fucking genius girl right there. If she can comprehend at this age at college level, but there's a problem with her reading or skills, doesn't that, like, I just, and the way he would make me read out loud in front of the class. I am dyslexic. I find out, you know, years later, I am dyslexic. And there's like 2 ways that you can be dyslexic, and I have both of them. And like, so between that and never being taught phonics, because we didn't learn phonics, we just were taught to read, you know, like I don't ever remember learning phonics. I didn't know phonics until I started teaching my special needs children phonics, and then I had to go sit down and learn it. Like, there were so many opportunities the outside world could have helped me, and they didn't. And then when there were people there that were willing to help or wanting to help, there was no avenues or no way for them to, there was no information about cults. There was nothing out there to help them help me. And they didn't know what to do. So I ended up just living on the street. You know, I guess that's, not only did the adults in the like cult let us down, but then the adults in the outside world let us down even more, I feel like, because they're supposed to be in reality. And honestly, you know, I hope my aunts and uncles don't feel too horribly about this, but I kind of hold them to blame in a lot of ways as well, because they didn't push. They didn't require, they didn't go to the courts and say, I want to have visitation, or, you know, like, and I know that's really hard to do. And I know, like, and I kind of feel bad for saying that, because my, you know, I have one uncle that really did go out of his way, and he would sneak and see us and bring us things. And, you know, we really treasured that time, and it really helped us, like, know there were other people out there on the outside world. And I know that they did try to help when we came to them, but every time we came to them, Rama still had a hold in them. And, you know,
I think it's a really tricky road when it's family, like outside family, and it's really hard to know what their role is.
Yeah.
And
I honestly, I face these same challenges in my own adopted family, because I have a sibling who is addicted to, you know, drugs, and she has a kid. And, you know, when is it my time to step in, and when should I step in? And I kind of feel like that, you know, like, you know, there's a lot of dynamics. There's my parents, and then there's my other siblings that, you know, so like I even face some of those issues in normal life. So I understand that every family and every situation has it, but I just feel like the cult should have been dismantled years and years and years and years and years ago, when reports of him using a cattle prod on us. And I'm serious, cattle prod to the vagina, me, to the inside of my thighs, to the back of my little part of my low back, armpits, the back of my neck, me. I know what happened. The bottom of our feet.
I've had it in my mouth.
Like, these things aren't a lie. They really did happen. I saw it, like, you know, you said putting the kids in the barrels, the pickle barrels or whatever. Like, we witnessed that all the time. That happened all the time. That was like a normal.
That was like a normal punishment.
Normal thing. And I remember, you know, my biological dad standing at the bottom of the stairs trying to get one of my brothers out of the barrels because he didn't want to leave him there. And he was like standing there waiting. I think he stood there for 3 hours or 4 hours. We were all sleeping in the car while he was down there standing there waiting. And like,
You know, this happened in Rochester too. Like us kids that went to Rochester schools, you know, there were reports made to Rochester schools too.
Why didn't they do anything about this?
And nothing was done.
Let me throw this in. When I got out and I was with Ebenezer in those first days when we were staying in Seymour, Ebenezer got on the phone and he called Governor Tommy Thompson's office in Wisconsin there. And Thompson wasn't there or whatever. He didn't get to talk right to him, but he left a message or something with somebody in the office. A little while later, I got a phone call from a lady that was in Tommy Thompson's office, and she said she overheard the conversation. Now, I don't remember all the details. I talked to this lady several times after that. Somewhere in that process, if I remember right, she called Shawano Schools. And however she got to find it out, but there was records in the school nurse's office of the kids coming in with bruises and marks on their bodies and different things. And I don't know what all it was. Anyway, when my case was going on, I told about different things about the kids being brought back to the compound from the sheriff department after they had run away. And I said, there's records at the school in the nurse's office and stuff. Nobody would go. They said it's all private. You can't touch those records. Nobody has access to them. And so even at that, when I was talking directly to the sheriff department, trying to bring a case against Rama, nobody would investigate it. The newspapers, Green Bay newspaper, I think it was KSTP or whatever, the TV station, both of those was WBAOI out of Green Bay. Those stations knew about all this stuff. They investigated as best they could. No officials in Shawano would give them any information. So here's the next thing. Okay, you got to understand that Darlene went into the sheriff department every day to check on the sheriff log or whatever of events that happened the night before.
Every meeting, every
She did what?
was there.
She would go into the sheriff department every day, I guess it was every day anyway, and she would check the sheriff log of events that happened the night before. Every car that drove by Rama's place and she called it in, she would sit out there with her binoculars and her camera and all this stuff. She would call in the license plate on every car, and she'd go in to make sure that was posted there. So when I went in there and talked to one of the deputies there, I told them, you can't write any of this stuff down because they will kill me. I said, if they find out that I came into the sheriff department and tattled on them, they'll come after me. And so the deputy put down his legal pad and just let me just ramble on, and I told him all kinds of stuff. He had gone to school with, I won't say the name, but one of the early girls that were in the cult. He had gone to school. He was a classmate with her. He came right out and asked me where she was and how she was doing. You know, and it's just that deputy and the investigator that I interviewed with turned around and lied in the courtroom to make sure that I was the one that looked bad and they didn't look bad, because they did all kinds of shoddy stuff. They didn't give me Miranda rights. There was all kinds of stuff that they did wrong, but they lied on the witness stand under oath. They lied, and so you know my whole effort to get Rama involved, to get a case against him, they just ignored it. Here's the other thing. The county attorney, the prosecuting attorney, the one that was against me, Darlene and him would sit down and talk together. So the whole sheriff office, everything was corrupt in Shawano from the beginning.
Oh my gosh. That just really cements what some of us kids have been feeling, that there was a lot of dirty stuff, underhanded, dirty stuff going on. And that is why none of this was investigated.
Well, there was just too many reports, like Rama's own brothers, like reported stuff.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Well, there's information.
If they
The new person that's talking has all kinds of information on Rama's brothers. So, I can't say it here, but, I wish that we could get her to talk,
Yeah.
but
We'll tell her story.
Someday,
Well,
someday,
come on.
someday, lots of other people will start talking, and then we'll know lots of more truth.
yeah, because every one of us, as I went around and interviewed different ones, everybody has their own, literally their own world that they lived in that nobody else knew about. Everybody's story is just incredible what they lived through in that place. And yet we stood right next to them. We were right there by them, in the same town with them. You talk about the public not responding. We knew these people. Yeah, we didn't know how they were being tortured and what was going on in their families. Everything was kept private. Nobody got to visit or talk to each other or anything.
No, you either sang or prayed.
Everything was private as far as abuse went, but there was plenty of public humiliation to go around.
Well, and backstabbing, that's how Rama that's how he created the enemies and divisions and kept one pitted against the other one and kept everybody tattling on each other. And, that's how he operated. Keep us all in fear of each other, not only fear of Rama, but fear of each other tattling.
Yeah.
No wonder they rate him worse than Hitler.
I really think that the reason why I was cut out so cold turkey was because I could keep secrets. Rama knew that. Because Rama would question me about things that would happen, so all of us kids would get together and we would go hang out in different places, and then he would get us one-on-one and kind of buddy up with us and try to get us to tell, everything that was going on. And almost everybody spilled their guts, but there were only there were a couple of us that did it. Tabra was really good at keeping his mouth shut. Spectacular. He was good at it. He taught me a few keep your face straight kind of thing. I can't lie worse shit. I'm the worst liar in the entire world, but I can keep a secret. I can do that. There were a couple of us, but Rama realized that I wouldn't tattle. And so he would say things to me like, your sins will be 100-fold because you're more wise than everybody else. And he would say
what's his sins gonna be?
Yeah, right. And so he just knew who he could manipulate and who he couldn't. And that was one of the reasons why I was cut out so cold turkey when I was younger, because I truly believe that he knew that I could not be persuaded or manipulated, or I wouldn't be so easy as a pawn as other people. And he knew which personalities to prey on and which ones not to.
Yeah, it's true.
I think that was an art of his.
No, he knew he said one time in the meeting that he just enjoyed watching people and seeing how their minds operated. And he was the master psychologist and manipulator. I mentioned in the group the other night, he was the master groomer, because that's the term that's used on a predator. And that's the enticement right there. The enticement and the threats. Enticement and threats. Rope the people in and then threaten them if they dare open their mouth and say anything.
Yeah, but then the other thing that he was really good at was getting other people to do what he wanted them to do without actually saying the words. He would get you so worked up and get you in a roundabout way. He would get it so that way he wouldn't have to say the words out loud. You would get to that place on your own because of the things that he would say. And so, he would say things like, well, she's really pretty. Or,
Well, the way that he spoke with males versus females was completely different type
Yes.
of speaking as well.
Yes. And like I witnessed this kind of thing where he would, you know, and it was obvious to me when like I would stand there and I'd be like, oh, okay. All right, well, he's pretty much telling you, yeah, go ahead. Like, have at her. Or like when he would motion to the boys, different signals. He wouldn't have to say it, but a hand signal, let them know, go get him.
Yeah.
Or
I saw that happen.
you
Well,
know,
you
And
got
then
one
and
of those-
then when the guy would get beat up and brought to him, he'd go, "What happened now?"
Yeah, just like he was innocent. You know,
Yeah.
when the two of you were talking in your last video about the boys and them being his goon squad or whatever you want to call it, I call them the brown shirts from Hitler's death squad or whatever you want to call it. But those boys, he got them trained to hate the dads, especially, but to you know, just literally be his hitmen. And so when Rama would, you know, say something about this one or that one, again, I don't want to say names, but they would go into that room underneath of that driveway there, yank them out in their sleeping bag, haul them out into the snow, into the mud, dump them out of their bag and beat the crap out of them, you know. It just, they had no, they, like you said, they were a pack of dogs. I call them a pack of wolves. But
Yep.
that's what I was scared when Tabra beat me up, hit me in the eye. I was scared that he left the house. I was literally scared that he was going to come back with the boys and they were going to do me in. That's why I called the sheriff department.
yeah.
I didn't care what happened. I didn't care what happened after that. That was the end of the line for me. I was going to spill my guts and I was going to come clean in myself, admit every wrong I had done. And I didn't care what happened to me, whether I went to prison the rest of my life or, you know, all I knew was I was throwing my hands to the world. And all I knew I had to get out of this hell and free myself. And that if it wouldn't have been that way, I would probably still be there. I would still be suffering to this day, but it took that smash to my eye and he came down with a piece of paper, Tabard did. He came down with a piece of paper. It said Gaeland Priebe has been written on it. It was Gaeland Priebe has been warned to go straight or to get out. And then there was a big long line on it and said, sign this. I read it and I said, I'm not signing that. And I threw it on the floor. And he stomped out of the house. And that's when I knew he was going out back up to the compound to get the other boys.
What's go straight mean?
Behave.
Behave?
Yeah. Behave.
Hey,
Yeah.
listen, stop.
Follow the Lord.
You're supposed to
Follow
behave.
Rama.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Who's
I mean-
going to make Rama behave now?
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll get somewhere with this.
He's got
Yeah.
too many Caucasian women living with him.
Yeah,
Nobody
yeah.
thinks that's wrong.
Well,
But none of us were supposed
look
to
at-
live
you know,
together.
Look at, from the very beginning, the ones that lived upstairs in this house.
Yep. From the very beginning.
I questioned it. Everybody questioned it. You know, what are these girls doing upstairs? And then the rumors came around years later from this one and
People
that one.
did
that were
question it.
What?
People did question why there were unmarried women living
Well, I
with him.
did anyway. I did. I know. I think there were others that questioned it from the start.
What
what
was Rama's? What
what do
did
you-
he say?
you asked him
Oh, no, I didn't. I didn't question it out loud to myself.
yourself. Okay. All right.
Yeah, like
know,
I mean,
okay,
those
I
of
wanna-
us that grew up, we were taught you can't like live together before you're married. Like
Yeah.
we were horrible people, and if any of the girls got pregnant, oh my God, the girls were whores.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yet he can live for 50 years with Caucasian women,
Yeah.
single women,
Well,
and
then
nobody says a word about it. It's fine.
Listen, these same girls, women, would come down and talk about the Hebrew women, that they were virtuous and you know, I can't remember all the words that this person used, but would tell us that we're never supposed to look at these Hebrew women wrong, and we're never supposed to have bad thoughts about these Hebrew women. And you know, this person chewed us out about having any impure thoughts about these girls. And yet look at them, they're right up there upstairs and he's doing this stuff to them.
Right.
Yeah, that's the kind of brainwashing he had. That's like, I have such a well, I shouldn't say horrible. I have such mixed emotions about a lot of the adults, including you, Gaeland, to be honest. You know, I have so many mixed emotions because as a little kid, I know the damage that we all have to live with. At the same time, I understand your damage and what he did to you. So there's such a mixed emotion. And I hope you understand, like, you don't take it as to be a horrible thing on you or any more guilt or anything like that on you. I don't want that, and I don't intend that on any of the adults. You understand what I'm saying? Yep. It's just that
I wouldn't have come on here if I felt like I was going to be publicly shamed or.
Yeah, but I also want, like, you know, like even my biological parents, if they are able to watch this, I want them to know that when I ask these questions or I say these things, I don't mean it to be any way hurtful or harmful or anything like that. I understand. At the same time, I don't understand. And so I have a love-hate relationship, I guess, with the adults in the cult, because I feel like they let us down. At the same time, I understand why they let us down and how Rama was the main puppeteer of everything. And
I told Michelle in a text, and I told this other person too that I've been talking to, but I don't think I've told it to you, Shifrah, is that within weeks of us getting there, Rama had us saying, yes, brother, no, brother, you know, pray for me, brother. You know, what would the Lord have me do, brother? We were reduced to children. And this Paul Martin that I went to at the Wellspring Institute, he said that we were operating under the mentality of a young teenager.
Oh yeah.
Adults, we as adults were operating as young kids. And because we were like little children being bossed by an abusive father.
Right.
And I know it's hard to believe, people in society can't believe that, but we were.
Yeah.
We literally acted like young kids.
We couldn't go anywhere unless we called and asked and got permission to go get
everything.
Gas, go get breakfast, or like to go get groceries, to anything you wanted to do, you had to call. And
so the cautionary tale in all of this is that this can happen anywhere and to anybody.
Yep. Yeah.
Because
the closest thing.
It's all the same. It's like, it's groupthink. It happens. It's still happening today. It's, you know, not just in all of our lives and the people we know, but it happens. It's happening all over the world. I mean, Scientology is still alive and well. The FLDS is still alive and well. There's cults all over the place that are still alive and well, that are the exact same type of manipulation and brainwashing.
Yeah.
It happens everywhere. Anybody can fall prey to it.
Yes. And the only way to stop it is to talk about it and get it out there so people are aware. So, you know, and you know, all of us have a guilt. All of us have guilt for things that we did, including me, on how I handled my little sister's getting out. You know, I had full custody of her. I could have stopped all that shit happening right then and there. But I was just so devastated by the fact that she wanted to call Rama and he still had that hold in her, when, you know, I look back at it and it was my responsibility to cut that cord, and I hold the responsibility of not knowing, even though unintentional, it was still my responsibility, and I didn't do it. I failed her. And, I've called her and apologized to her for it. But even though I apologize for it, it will never undo the things that happened to her due to that. I can't unring that bell. I can't undo those bad things. And, it's something that we talk about and hopefully we learn from, but that damage is done. And the same thing with raising my oldest, boys, or my oldest son. He was a trigger to me, and it took a lot for me to realize that he was a trigger for me. And man, I'd go from 0 to 100 in a split second, and to the point where my whole body's just vibrating and I'm screaming at him to get out of my house. And like, and like, that is so inappropriate for an adult to be doing to a child. And I don't care what he did or said or anything like that. That was my trauma coming up and biting me in the ass when I'm trying to raise my children. And it took that and me doing a lot of soul searching as to why did I react that way, for me to realize, holy shit, he was a trigger, because he was a teenage boy with that same kind of mentality that the teenage boys at Rama's used to have. And it would terrify me. It would scare the shit out of me. And I didn't want that in my house. And when my husband would leave, and that would come out even more in him, because that's natural and that's normal. And that's something that every teenage boy has. And then talking about it, explaining it to him so that he understood, that way it wouldn't carry on to his children. And now, so it's just talking about it, growth. That's the only way we're going to heal. It's the only way we're going to be able to stop this kind of stuff from happening, is just talking about it.
And taking responsibility is a really good thing. It builds respect and it helps healing. And I've got to respect you, Gaeland, for taking responsibility. And
yes,
you're the first parent to publicly validate my story. So that says a lot to me. And it's done a lot for me. So I have to thank you for that too.
I agree.
Well, I damaged some people. I damaged a person. And the rest of my life, it's all I can do to help people, to try to make amends for the wrong I've done. And I was not that kind of person in my life. This monster turned me into something that I never dreamed I could become.
Mm-hmm.
And I was aware of it. I can't say I was crazy. I was aware of what I was doing, but I was a tiger trapped in the corner of the cage. And I was going to kill, destroy, whatever I had to do, but I was going to break out of that cage. And the victim got hurt. I'm responsible for that.
Yeah.
And, but I had to get free. And that was my retaliation, and my way of doing it. It's totally wrong. I admit that, and I'm ashamed of it. But, we had to go rescue one of the men that in Rochester. He was from Shawano. So Dave McCullough and I had to go rescue this man he had swallowed a bottle of aspirins. He was going to end it that night. We had to go find him. We didn't even know where he was. We had to haul him to the hospital, get his stomach pumped. That's an adult trying to commit suicide in that place because they can't handle the spray. He was the tiger in the corner of the cage too, but he took a different avenue,
Yeah.
So
and a lot did.
So many just tragic stories.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, guys, I'm going to have to jump off here.
My battery's about dead now too.
Gaeland, again, I appreciate you coming on here and just being
thank you.
And raw.
Anytime if I can help you guys understand the beginning years that you weren't even born yet, if I can help you understand, adults' point of view for what you kids went through, I'm always available. I'm not, you can call me day or night and I will talk. And if we get somebody else that wants to talk, I've got a lot of training on Wesley.
Yeah.
So, I seem to have a knack for being able to talk to people, and
Because you understand
I'm humiliated. I'm the humblest person you're ever going to meet, and so you can't get any lower than me. And I'm willing to hear your story, and I won't judge you. I might point out some things like I do with Wesley.
I want to stop you right there. You are not
Sure.
you are not, okay, you cannot think of yourself like that. You have done bad things. You have done
I
things that you
understand.
regret, but you are not the lowest of the low. That is not, if you think of yourself like that, then Rama wins. You can't think of yourself like that. That is what his goal was, to get you to believe that about yourself. That is how he was able to do the things he was able to do. But you're not that. And the reason why you're not that is because you turned yourself in and you did what you needed to do to get out of there. And you have built a life for yourself, and you have helped people, and you have tried to turn your life around. Not only have you tried, but you have been. And every day that you
took responsibility and paid the consequence.
Yeah.
So don't think of yourself like that, please. And don't use that language about yourself, even in your own head, because you know the power of thoughts and you know the power of words. So don't do that to yourself. That's an injustice and a disservice to everybody. We all
I understand. I understand that, but let me just say this, is that I dealt with pride before I got into cult. I had built a geodesic dome. I'd gotten in public recognition in the Minneapolis Sunday paper. I was going to start my own dome company and everything before I got into the cult. So I had pride. I got a little bit arrogant. I thought I'd become somebody. So this whole 25-year journey, I say in my story that I was walking across the shop one day, and this voice spoke to me in my head, saying, until you go through the darkness, you can't appreciate the light. Until you suffer through the cold, you won't know how good the feeling of warmth is. And this voice kept saying these opposite things to me, and how until I suffered, I wouldn't appreciate the beautiful things in life. Well, I did. I suffered 25 years, and then another some 8 odd years after that. I've gone through my suffering. I watched I lived with 2 of my children dying. How much more? I don't want to say that word. I've suffered a lot. So when I say I'm at the lowest of the low, I understand any suffering that you guys can bring from your own life. I understand it. I've been through it, and I'll help you any way I can. I'll help you. I'll hold you in my arms. I'll cry with you. I'll do whatever I can. Just know that I understand, and that I came out. If I can come out and have a life afterwards, then any of you can. And that's what I really want to emphasize, that don't give up hope and don't do bad, harmful things to yourself. I did all this without going on drugs. I didn't drink alcohol. I didn't do any of that stuff after I got out of the cult. I went through my therapies and did all my stuff. But I read psychology books. I had 5.5 years to do nothing but read and get my body in shape. I learned how to play guitar. I learned pottery and all those. Went out to the track and the field, exercised hours a day. But I read psychology books. I read Carl Jung. I read, all kinds of different things. I did Buddhist meditation. I did all these things, that were available to me to heal myself and get myself into a decent spiritual shape, mental shape. And that's what I can offer. We haven't even talked about any of the healing mechanisms that I've learned and stuff, or that 5.5 years. That 5.5 years was a vacation. You guys don't understand. After 25 years in that cult, having the freedom, who knows about freedom in a place like where I was at for 5.5 years? That's not freedom to most people, but it was to me. You know, it was beautiful there for me.
I've
I'll tell
I've
you that
heard
story.
I've heard that from other people too. I've heard that.
I'll tell you that stories of my time in there at some time. But talk about getting blessed and seeing the hand of God in my life.
Yeah.
That's for another video or one
video.
other talk sometime. But the stuff that I witnessed there and lives that I saved while I was in there. But then I also saw some horrible things. I saw guys commit suicide, attempted in there. So, you know, I've seen a lot of life. So I understand.
Well, I appreciate you so much, Gaeland. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you so much for all your time with my brother.
Well, he keeps me on my toes, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And like we understand that it takes time and it takes mental strength to do that. So
Yeah.
you know, that's one of the reasons why we're so grateful that you do that, is because
My dad's really grateful too.
Yeah, well, I've said some harsh things about Grant, but he was a nice guy. I know he didn't mean to do that stuff, just like none of us did. He was not that kind of a person, but he did it, and that's why I got to call it out.
Yeah.
We perpetrated that monster to become
Yeah,
who he was.
everybody did.
Yep. So
And
anyway,
that's
Shifrah, I want to thank you for really saying nice things about Ebenezer. That really touches my heart a lot, and he was a beautiful person,
he was.
you know.
He was.
Yeah, I got a lot more really wonderful stories to tell about it after we got out of the cult and the things that he did and stuff. So, sometimes we can share all that too, but thank you very much.
You're welcome. Welcome.
All right.
And like real quick, I just want to say, in the midst of all the horror that was going on and all the crazy stuff that was going on, us kids did, we did have a blast.
We did make memories. We did make good memories to sustain us.
And
I've heard that from several children, how you had your little code words and you had your little, ways to sneak around Rama and do things.
We all learned sign language.
Yeah.
So, I want you to also take away that amidst of all of that, and I know, all the upset, there was also some wonderful memories us kids will always have, and some bonding that will never break us. We will always have that, and it doesn't matter where we are in our world, when we see each other, it's an automatic connection. And so take that, Ebenezer will always have good, wonderful memories with me. And when I tell my kids stories about stuff, he comes up, so he lives on through stories of me telling. And my kids, believe me, are sick and tired of hearing my childhood stories about how we did crazy things and all of this stuff. And the more I tell them about it, they these people live on through them, and so they know about Ebenezer well because he's got a weird name. So they were like, what, his name? So right away when I say Ebenezer, they know. Oh, all right.
Yeah.
So he lives on, and so know that, and take that away.
Thank you.
Part of another, yeah. And all of us kids have the same thing, Michelle, you have good memories and fun stuff that we did. And,
from our Rochester group.
Yeah. And
we all had our groups. We had to survive somehow.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Okay, my battery's just about ready to die, so I guess we're gonna
and I gotta go. I'm
all right.
Okay.
Good to talk to you guys tonight. See you another time. Okay.
Okay.
Bye-bye.